Your human consciousness is so much more powerful than you've been led to believe in the Rockefeller education that tells you you're a mind and you're a body. Meanwhile, we are these eternal spiritual beings having a temporary human experience here on planet Earth. Today, we're talking about the densities of consciousness and moving up them, the spectrum of consciousness, where we are on planet Earth, and how to understand our ego-based consciousness, and where we're going from here. You've probably seen online the 3D to 5D Earth split. You're going to get left behind. Right? And that's the drama. That's the drama. So we're going to get into the real science of it based on the Law of One texts by Ra. So go check that out. I'll throw a link in the description for the Law of One so you can gain a deeper understanding of this knowledge. So we're going to start this conversation at the third density of consciousness because that's where you and I are. We're in these third density bodies. We have this body that is confined by three dimensions of height, width, and depth. And by moving this body, we move through time. Moving through space allows for the passing of time. That is the third density, right? And in this third density body that we've incarnated in, we are third density beings because we've become self-aware. And what that means is we've developed an ego. We can look in the mirror and recognize ourselves. That is self-awareness. When you can look in the mirror and say, that's me. When you can see the world as separate from yourself, when you can say, this is mine and that's yours, possess ownership of something, you're developing this third density of self-awareness, this ego-based consciousness. And that's where we're at on planet Earth. Look at war, look at business, look at money, look at families and ownership, property. Right? We say, this is mine and that's yours, and let's keep it that way because we're separate. We're not the same. Let's not share, right? So that's ego-based consciousness. Here we are right here. Boop, there's us in. Hi, third density awareness here on planet Earth. Now, I mentioned that this is the recognition of yourself, ownership, attachment, right? This ego develops in other animals, not just humans. Think about your dog. I drew here my Coda. I drew Coda here. My dog Coda is very self-aware. She has her toys. When you tell her, oh, go pick up your red Frisbee, she knows the red Frisbee. She goes and picks it up. When I say, hey, Coda, come here, she knows her name. That's a degree of self-awareness. So that's the lower degree of the third density. And we'll get into a bit more about the levels of these because it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum of consciousness. It's not just like, you're in the third density, this is the fourth density, this is the first density. No, it's not strict and rigid. Everything flows in our universe. So we have dogs here. Dogs, your dog, and you as a third density being, you're showing that dog love and making it more self-aware. You're reaffirming its beliefs. You're providing for it and loving it and bringing it up to that fourth density, which we'll get into a bit later. But there's other animals that humans aren't taking care of. Think of monkeys, think of dolphins, right? Dolphins are super intelligent. Think of whales, other mammals that have this sense of love. And that's what the third density really is about, is when we gain this sense of self-awareness, we start to develop this sense of love, right? Because when we start to notice ourselves, we start to notice ourselves in others. And by noticing ourselves in others, in turn, we are loving those other beings. So now that we sort of understand third density consciousness, we're going to jump up here to the first density of consciousness. And we're gonna go all the way through so you can gain an understanding. First density of consciousness is the 5 primordial elements. We have fire, we have water, we have earth, we have air, and we have ether, right? So these 5 primordial elements are the first density of consciousness. This is beingness, correct? So these elements are conscious. These elements are alive. They make up our universe. Everything can be broken down into these elements, right? Everything can be broken down into these elements in our cosmos, right? So like us on planet Earth, we see, oh, like there's water, there's an atmosphere, there's air, there's fire that's kept us alive and lit the flame for our consciousness. There's earth, right? There's earth, there's solid matter that we are made of, with this matter body, material body. And then there's ether. There's the ether that the forces beyond what we can see that power and animate our physical beings, right? And that's the forces that make these go round. Think about ether as like gravity, right? For example, gravity is an etheric force, right? And that consolidates matter and brings it in, right? That's the same sense. Gravity, in a sense, is the same way love brings humans together. Gravity brings the primordial elements together. And these primordial elements, they're in this soup of consciousness, right? They start blending together. Right? Think about the earth before there was any life on earth. Life on earth. The earth was alive before there was any conscious beings on earth, right? They come together in this cosmic soup of consciousness, and they're underwater, there's a crater, and it's firing up hot water, right? When these elements come together, that's when we start to create life. Right? So look into the evolutionary process, and we see that like heat came together with water and some sort of earthly element and animated itself, and now we have life. Where'd it come from, right? Now, as soon as we have life, we have something that's alive, something that can move, something that has somewhat of a brain and a body that's not confined to just itself. Now we have the second density of consciousness. And at the low level of the second density of consciousness, we have like microbial life, we have bacteria, we have fungus, right? And then we move up into plants. We have these jungle and forest systems. We have these ecosystems beyond brains. And the second density of consciousness begins to create. The second density of consciousness is creative. It begins to order itself. You see fractal geometry in a forest. You see all the fractal geometry. You see fractal geometry in shells coming out of the ocean. Right? There's order in second density. It starts to create. It starts to create schools of fish, right? Think about that. That's a second density of consciousness. A fish doesn't know its name, but it's sure as hell alive. Right? And then we have birds. Think of a dove flying through the sky. A dove is alive. A dove is alive, so it's at that second density of consciousness. But it doesn't have this sense of self-awareness yet, right? So second density of consciousness can be synonymous with being alive with no degree of self-awareness, right? So if that makes sense, we can start to move up into this third density of consciousness once again, right? And through nurturing, through community, we go from that second density of consciousness into the third density of consciousness. Because the third density of consciousness is where self-awareness begins. It's where we can look in the mirror. It's where we can see ourselves as this one ego, as separate from the world. And this is the longest density of consciousness because it's so difficult to really know ourselves, to accept ourselves, to see ourselves in love, which is the fourth density of consciousness. And the fourth density of consciousness, I wrote love up there because love is what brings all of these up to love. Love brings all of these up to the fourth density of consciousness. Because for these beings, right, think of a beehive. All of the bees, the worker bees, providing for the queen bee because they love her, right? That is a sense of love. So they may be even higher in this third density. They're programmed to provide for that queen bee, but it's a sense of love that brings them there, right? Your dog, the reason their dog has self-awareness is because you love that dog. The reason Coda has such a high degree of self-awareness is because me and my family love Coda so damn much, and we feed her, and we play with her, and we reaffirm that she is a being in this world. So, fourth density of consciousness is that of love. It's that of unity. Not quite unity, but seeing past separation. Fourth density of consciousness is when you start to see yourself in the world. And that's why you've seen the 3D to 5D Earth split, the 3D to 4D Earth split, right? Because we're moving towards love. Why do you think humans are obsessed with marriage? Why do you think humans are obsessed with sexual pleasures? Because humans want to understand love. Humans are obsessed with love. So when we get into this fourth density of consciousness and start to get into it, moving from this third density into the fourth density, we start to see ourselves in the world. We start to act selflessly. We start to act with gratitude. We start to show up in the world the way that we want to see the world. We start to act selflessly. We begin to serve others. So these traits I've written here for the fourth density of consciousness is somebody's heart-centered, right? I am in love with the world. I love my life. I provide for my family. I'm super grateful to be alive. Heart-centered. Service to others. You serve others. You have a selfless occupation. We aren't thinking from just this ego-based consciousness, me, 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 me. We're thinking about we. Service to others. Now, we're intuitive. We're compassionate. We're present. We're selfless. Intuition starts to come in when we start to learn from the world. And that's what fourth density means, is because we start to see ourselves not as separate from the world. The world is simply an extension of ourselves that we see ourselves reflected back to us. And every single moment we are learning. So if you watch my other video on vibration, the higher your vibration is, the more you're in this present moment. Correct? So the more you're in the present moment, the more that you can notice. And the more that you notice, the more that you love what you're noticing. The more that you love what you're noticing, the more present you are, the more that you can learn from the world, and the more that you learn from your human experience. The more selfless you can become, the more that you learn, because you learn to see the world as an extension of yourself. So those around you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, they're no different than you when you look in the mirror. So why would you treat them as any less than? And that is the fourth density of consciousness. When humanity starts to live from heart-centered consciousness, the fourth density from love, we are going to ascend to the next density, to the next level, to the next dimension of consciousness. This is a game. We're playing this game. Can't you see? It's a game. It's a game, Jack. So there's been beings. You've seen enlightened beings, probably. You've heard the term enlightenment. Oh, let's get to enlightenment, right? There have been beings that have reached this fourth density of consciousness. Think about people like Christ, Jesus Christ. He's been deified on our planet because he lives so heart-centered with love, selflessly. He transcended this physical dimension, and he was sacrificed. He was a martyr for the cause of love. Think about how many people pray in Jesus Christ's name every single day with love, because he cultivated so much in his 33 years on planet Earth. He was so selfless. He served others so well. He was so compassionate. He was so present and wise for his age that he's been worshipped and deified for the last 2,000 years, BC, before Christ. Our whole calendar is based on Christ's existence because it was so meaningful, and he marked the transition for us to ascend from love. And think about the Buddha. The Buddha is another one. The Buddha ascended. He was an enlightened being. He lived by love. He was selfless, right? And there's no one-track way to get there, because Christ's way was different than the Buddha way, was different than the Krishna way. And now I just listed 3 of these on here. There's plenty of more enlightened beings that have walked the planet. You can go look it up online. And Ramana Maharshi, look at people like Eckhart Tolle and Ram Dass, who maybe aren't enlightened per se, but they're high beings. They're living from love. Ram Dass. So these beings are embodying these traits to move to that next density of consciousness. And today we're talking only about the fourth density of consciousness. There's higher densities of consciousness explained in the Law of One, so if you're interested in that, go read it for yourself. I'm not getting into that stuff yet, because this is practical. This is practical. You can use this in your everyday life because you can embody these traits and start living in this fourth density of love. And the more that you embody these traits, the higher your vibration gets, the more you notice, the more you grow, the more you love, the better experience that you have on planet Earth. It's not rocket science. Looks like it when I have all these lines all over the place, but it's not rocket science. Live heart-centered lives from love, and you will ascend this third density of consciousness. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. So lead with love. Click subscribe on this channel because we're going to be making videos like this all the time. And yeah, keep on keeping on. Go buy Law of One. I'll link that in the description if you haven't. Or there's a free version online, which I've read as well. So I'll link all that in the description. I love you. Click subscribe. We'll be back for more consciousness, more love, more meditation, more spiritual awakening. All of it. I love this shit. So thank you for watching.